Welcome back to the Small Business Mindset. I've been having a lot of conversations with friends and collaborators this week that center around the topic of what are you good at? And feeling maybe a little intimidated by that question. I'm a mom, and I know many of my listeners are also parents, and there's plenty of opportunities I'm sure you've had throughout time or even throughout this school year where you have been asked as a parent to donate something or help with something or provide something to your child's classroom or playgroup or teacher or what have you. The conversation I've been having lately is been centered around women and women's abilities and women's expectations as the gender that we play on what kind of expertise we can bring to the table. Now, before we get a little confused on this topic, I think this applies to business and the mindset that we give ourselves every day because it's a traditional way of thinking when we place ourselves in gender roles, me being a female or even, men being men. What traditionally are we supposed to be good at? And I'm using some air quotes today. What are we good at? I will admit, I am not good at a lot of those domestic duties. I'm not a great cook. I don't craft very well. I don't enjoy it. I'm not a good gardener. In fact, if you try to bring a plant into my house, it will probably die because I'll forget about it and don't water it, and I don't know a lot about it. I enjoy looking at things like that, but I am not your person when it comes to a lot of those things. I know how to sew enough to replace a button. I can maybe put a hem together, not great, but otherwise that is not my area of expertise. I think a lot of times women, and I'm calling our women out today on purpose because a lot of these conversations I've had with other women, they get intimidated and they tend to keep quiet and freak out a little bit when someone says, hey, what are you good at? Could you bring a crock pot full of soup to the teacher's luncheon this week? Could you volunteer to make cookies or cupcakes or a baked good? Could you show up and help with craft time? And if you're anything like me and you're thinking, oh my goodness, that's the last thing I want to do, but I don't want to be seen as a bad mom or a bad parent or not a supporter of my community of which I so much want to engage. A lot of times I even ask myself, could I just write a check? Sometimes that's okay too. What I want to have the conversation with you about today is finding those areas where you are really good at things and you can claim to be an expert. I had lunch recently with a friend of mine and we were talking about our mothers, and both of our mothers worked in corporate America in different levels. Her mom owned a company. Her mom ran a company, ran boards, and was in big leadership positions. And I think this friend of mine and I could identify very closely together because we both also own companies. And not making excuses for the fact that, we're not, I think she used the word, I don't do dirt and I don't do kids, but you know what? I can run a meeting really, really well. That's my strength. The conversations that I've had with you over the course of running this podcast, and if you've interacted with me in real life or on social, I want to make sure that part of the power of us being together is owning your power and stepping into it and not being afraid to say, you know what? I'm not an expert at that. I'm actually not very good at that at all. And it's not because I didn't learn it or it wasn't, shared with me. Maybe I just don't like it. But more importantly is that I can bring value in a lot of other ways. I'm sure many of you over the course of your time or career have sat around a table, whether it was a board meeting or a team meeting or a committee meeting, what have you. And maybe there was an event coming up. And the person running the meeting made a call, hey, listen, we have a breakfast event coming up, or we're celebrating somebody's birthday, or, we have a church picnic, whatever it is. How often, and notice this if you haven't been at one of those meetings lately, how often when they make a request, and usually it's food related or coordination related or decorations or setup, whatever. And most of the people at the table will look towards the women to make that happen. The women will volunteer to make the food. The women will volunteer to arrange for the decorations, to do the setup, to do the cleanup. I challenge yourself, if you're in a meeting like this in the near future, keep quiet for a second. See if the men at the table raise their hand or ask, hey, Bob or John or Chris or whatever your name is, hey, could you please help coordinate or prepare the snacks, prepare the food. If that is not an area of their expertise, that's okay, because it might not be yours either. But they can sure do what you would probably do. They can probably coordinate with somebody that knows how to bake, or call a bakery, or call a caterer and make those arrangements. A lot of times our expertise doesn't have anything to do with our exact skill set in completing the task at hand. It has more to do with our ability to say yes to things and no to others, and also to coordinate activities and to delegate activities. So I don't ever want you to be afraid, based on your gender, that you have to be pigeonholed into one kind of domestic duty or one specific thing. Let's flip the tables a second and talk about the guys. I think at the same time, if we think women traditionally need to be experts in domestic duties, baking, sewing, household duties, crafting, gardening, those child rearing, I think we sometimes make the same assumption on our male counterparts that they should be good at fix-it things. They should be able to know how to, change the oil in the car, or, know when something's broken, they can fix it, or, patch a hole in a wall, or do yard work, or whatever. That's not always the case either. I encourage you to be open to these conversations we're having with each other and owning the fact that it's okay to not have an expertise in an area that traditionally maybe people thought of you for. I'm going to give you some examples of areas that, you probably don't think are areas of expertise at all, but quite honestly, they bring a huge amount of value. What I've realized over time, especially in the boards I volunteered on through my community, is just having the analytical work and having the leadership work it takes to run a meeting. The leadership work it takes to help make decisions and to make some strategies and put analysis together and evaluate financials. Those are all phenomenal skills to have that many of you can bring to the table. I don't ever want you to be afraid to say, you know what, I'm really good at that. That's something I definitely can take on. And even if it's out of your norm. At the same time, I think we also need to be confident in the fact that we can lead our businesses and lead our community in ways that bring our skill set too. Maybe you're somebody that's really good at research. Maybe you're a really good connector. Maybe you're someone that knows how to put a spreadsheet together with finesse and coordinate lots of different people to accomplish a common goal. Maybe you know how to look at something creatively and come up with solutions, whether it's from a design standpoint, or you're curating a space, or you're rethinking the placement of items for display, or how staff members should work together differently, or how to coach people, how to lead people for change. These are all amazing levels of expertise that have nothing to do with just those minute tasks, because I guarantee you there are plenty of people out there that can handle all the rest of the stuff. I encourage those people to speak up too. I have a friend right now that is going through some cancer treatment, and my heart is out to her. And it has taken her a very bold step, not only in her treatment of this, but also to ask for help in the community. And she has set up a page where those of us that know her can help support her in whatever way she needs. And I applaud her for that, because she is somebody a lot like me that I'm sure has a hard time asking for help. And although I see her as an expert in so many things, I think she's coming into a time in her life that's going to be challenging for her physically, emotionally, mentally, and to be able to support her family and do all the things. She has created a way and a platform that says, hey, listen, I might be an expert in this. I don't have the bandwidth or the energy to do all this, and I'm going to need your help. And asking for help in different ways. And it's been kind of interesting to see the responses and people saying, hey, listen, I can help in this way. This is the best way I can help. But unfortunately, I can't help in this way. And that's okay. I think being vulnerable and being honest about what you're willing to do. And quite honestly, if you're someone that loves to cook, whether you're a man or a woman, if you love to cook and you thought, you know what, the easiest way for me to contribute and for me to be an expert is it's not a big deal for me to make an extra serving or an extra, pan of lasagna or an extra meal and drop it by. In fact, that's probably the easiest way for me to provide my area of expertise and me to provide my value. Then do it. In fact, sometimes people feel hindered when, they're in a challenging situation and they don't know how to ask for help because they think, I don't want to burden somebody with something, because they automatically assume if I don't like to do it, they probably don't like to do it. How many of us can identify with that? I know that, I don't love to cook. Why would I ask somebody else to make me a meal or to prepare something? Here's the reality of it. Every single one of us has a different skill set. Every single one of us brings a different talent or skill to the table. And we might not even know what that is until we ask. So lesson learned here today, don't be afraid to ask and don't be afraid to share what your skill set is. I think we discover a lot about each other when we start investigating and being honest as far as, what we're good at, what we're not good at. It's okay. And don't feel intimidated by it, because your success is not defined by how much you do in one road or another. Your success is not defined by your gender roles. Your success is not defined by, how good your cooking skills are, or how you can plant a garden, or if you make organic vegetables and incorporate them into a sauce that you then can and freeze or share with friends in the wintertime. I applaud women that do that and men that do that. I think that's fantastic. That is not a skill I will ever achieve. But here's what I can do. So here's my truth and coming into what I'm all about in my areas of expertise. I'm fantastic at organization. I'm fantastic at making strategies and looking into complex financial analysis to determine if my clients should go after a project or not. I'm a great communicator. I tend to be very straightforward with people and very honest and let them know exactly what path they stand. Even at the end of the day, it means that they don't move forward with one of their plans. I know, as somebody that owns a business and relies on client income to make sure I pay my bills and I make an income, the best conversations I get to have with clients is when we have taken a deep dive into looking at what their goals are and evaluating their strategies. And if we say, we have come to a conclusion that now's not the best time to move, which means I don't get a paycheck from that. But what I've created for them is I am providing my utmost level of expertise that gives them security and a solid path forward. And I am providing expertise to give to them to make them sure that when the time's right and when the opportunity is right, you better believe we're going to dial down in the weeds, because that's my area of expertise. And I'm going to give that to you. And I'm going to help lead you through the process to make sure we're both successful, because that's the name of the game. I always tell my clients, your success is my success. If you're not successful, then I'm not successful. And the best way for me to help you is to tell you I am an expert in this and I can provide value in this way. Not everything. And I will be first to say, if there is an area that we're working on together that I am not an expert on, I will be the first to say that and say, we need to bring in somebody else that has a higher level of expertise. And then it's their choice. I can't be a one-size-fits-all for everybody, but what I can do is open my mouth and share what I know and share my abilities with others, because that also helps stimulate their abilities to share their expertise with you. So, moral of the story, think about what you're good at, and it doesn't have to be traditional. Get out of those traditional boxes and realize that your skills, your gifts are so important. Share them with others.